You have her eyes. The words slipped from Michael Thompson's lips before he could stop them, plunging the black sedan into a thick silence. The young driver's face in the rearview mirror turned pale, and for a moment time seemed to freeze. It was as if Catherine's ghost were there, staring back at him through those same green eyes that had haunted his dreams for 6 months. But let's go back 40 minutes, to when this day still seemed like just another in the empty life of the richest and loneliest man in the city. The elevator's mirrored walls didn't lie. Michael Thompson looked as though he had aged 10 years in the past 6 months. The dark circles under his eyes and prematurely graying hair were silent witnesses to sleepless nights, while the emptiness in his gaze betrayed a pain that no bank account could ever ease. At 52, the CEO of Thompson Enterprises was the embodiment of corporate success and personal failure. "Top floor," announced the elevator's metallic voice. Michael adjusted his Italian silk tie for the 3rd time that morning, a nervous habit that Catherine, his late wife, had always found endearing. The memory sent a familiar pang through his chest. 6 months had passed since cancer had taken her, yet the pain remained as sharp as it had been on the first day. The penthouse office of the commercial tower offered a panoramic view of the city. From his massive mahogany desk, Michael could watch the endless motion of the streets 40 floors below, a perfect metaphor for how life pressed on relentlessly, even as his own world had frozen the moment Catherine had closed her eyes for the last time. "Mr. Thompson?" Jennifer's voice, steady and familiar after 15 years as his assistant, came through the intercom. "Your driver called. He's dealing with a family emergency and won't be able to take you to the downtown meeting." Michael glanced at his wristwatch, a Patek Philippe, a gift from Catherine on their last wedding anniversary. "How long to arrange another driver?" "I've already checked, sir. At this hour, with traffic, none would arrive in time for the meeting." He ran a hand through his graying hair, frustration mounting. The meeting with investors was critical. The largest acquisition in Thompson Enterprises history hinged on it. Canceling wasn't an option. "I'll book a car through a rideshare app, sir," Jennifer offered. "Do it," he agreed reluctantly. The thought of stepping into a stranger's car didn't sit well with him, but necessity rarely cared for personal preferences. 15 minutes later, Jennifer announced the car's arrival. Michael headed downstairs, clutching his leather briefcase and a few confidential documents. At the curb, a well-kept black sedan awaited him. He checked the license plate against the app before opening the passenger door. "Good morning," a female voice, startlingly familiar, greeted him. "I'm Olivia, your driver?" And that was the moment Michael Thompson's world turned upside down. The young woman behind the wheel, no older than 25, was the spitting image of Catherine in her youth. The same green eyes, the same shape of her face, even the smile carried that distinctive rightward tilt that had captivated him 3 decades ago. After his impulsive remark about her eyes, an awkward silence filled the car. Olivia adjusted the rearview mirror, visibly uncomfortable. "Sir? Are you all right?" "Sorry," he mumbled, struggling to regain his composure. You reminded me of someone." The drive began under a cloud of tension, but Michael couldn't keep his eyes from the rearview mirror. Every movement, every expression from the driver was like an old film reel of Catherine being played before his eyes. The resemblance was too uncanny to be a coincidence. "Have you always worked as a driver?" The question slipped out before he could stop it. "Actually no," Olivia replied, skillfully navigating through traffic. "I'm a photographer. I drive to supplement my income while building my portfolio." "A photographer?" Michael's heart raced. Catherine had also been a photographer at the start of her career. "Yes, specializing in documentary photography. I inherited it from my mother." She paused as if deciding whether to continue. "She was also a photographer but passed away when I was a baby. I was raised by my grandmother in another state." The air inside the car grew unbearably heavy. Michael gripped the leather folder on his lap so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Your mother, what was her name?" Olivia hesitated for a moment, her eyes meeting his in the rearview mirror. Elizabeth Parker." The name hit Michael like a punch to the gut. Elizabeth Parker. The name Catherine had used before legally changing it to Catherine Thompson, before becoming the celebrated art photographer who would later abandon her career to help him build his empire. "Stop the car," he whispered. "Excuse me? Please stop the car." His voice was trembling. Olivia pulled over at the first available spot. Michael felt cold sweat trickle down his back, his mind a whirlwind of questions and possibilities. Catherine had never mentioned having a daughter, but there was that nearly year-long period in the early 90s when she had vanished, saying she needed to find herself through the lens of her camera. Mr. Thompson? You're really pale. Should I call an ambulance? No, he breathed deeply, trying to steady himself. Olivia, do you have a picture of your mother? She frowned, clearly puzzled by the question, but nodded. I have a few old ones on my phone. After a few swipes on the screen, she handed the device to him. The photo showed a young Catherine, or Elizabeth as she was called then, smiling at the camera, a Nikon hanging from her neck, with the backdrop of an art exhibition behind her. Michael recognized the photo. He had taken it himself during their first exhibition together. But there was another detail he had never noticed before: the small curve of her belly, carefully concealed by the loose dress. When were you born? The question escaped him, almost a whisper. April 15, 1994, Olivia replied, the confusion on her face gradually replaced by an expression of realization. Exactly 9 months after that photo was taken. Michael looked at the photo again, then back at Olivia, as the pieces of a 3-decade-old puzzle finally clicked into place. Catherine hadn't just disappeared to find herself. She had left to protect a secret she had carried to her grave. I think, he began, his voice faltering with emotion, we need to talk about your mother. And about why she chose the name Elizabeth Parker. Olivia's eyes widened, a mixture of fear and hope dancing in her green irises. The same eyes that had captivated him all those years ago, the same eyes that had walked out of his life 6 months ago, the same eyes that now searched his for answers. What do you know about my mother? The meeting with investors was completely forgotten. In that moment, sitting in a car stalled in the middle of the city, Michael Thompson realized he had far more to lose, and gain, than any business deal could offer. The cafe on the corner was small and inviting, the kind of place Catherine would have loved. Michael watched Olivia idly stirring her cup, her long, delicate fingers identical to her mother's. The silence between them was heavy, filled with 3 decades of untold secrets. So, Olivia began, her voice trembling slightly, you knew my mother? Michael took a deep breath, grappling with how to condense 25 years of life with Catherine into a few sentences. How to explain that the woman Olivia knew as Elizabeth Parker was the same woman who had become Catherine Thompson, his wife and life partner. I didn't just know your mother, he finally answered, his voice hoarse with emotion. She was my wife. The cup in Olivia's hands clinked against the saucer. Her green eyes, so achingly familiar, widened in shock. That's not possible. My mother died when I was a baby. Grandma showed me the death certificate. Michael closed his eyes briefly, recalling the year Catherine had vanished. In 1994? Yes, Olivia whispered. In a car accident? There was no accident, Michael said softly. Your mother, Catherine, she came back to me that year. She changed her name, rebuilt her life. We got married a few months later. Olivia's hands began to tremble visibly. Are you telling me that my mother abandoned a newborn baby to marry you? The pain in her voice was raw, and Michael felt his chest tighten. No, it's not that simple. Catherine, she never told me about you. She never mentioned being pregnant or having a child. She carried that secret for 25 years until 6 months ago when cancer took her. The silence that followed was deafening. Olivia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I need some air. Michael watched as Olivia walked to the sidewalk, her hands pressed against her face. Through the cafe window, he could see her shoulders trembling with muffled sobs. He wanted to get up, hold her, tell her everything would be okay, but what right did he have? He was a stranger to her, even if he might be. His thoughts were interrupted when Olivia returned to the table, her eyes red but resolute. Why did she do it? Why did she abandon me? Why did she lie to everyone for so long? Michael pulled his wallet from his pocket and took out an old, worn photograph. It was Catherine on her first day at Thompson Enterprises, smiling shyly at the camera. Your mother was the kindest, most complex person I've ever known. When we met, she was a talented but struggling photographer trying to make a name for herself in the art world. We fell in love quickly, but she always said she needed to find her true self before committing to anyone. Olivia took the photo with trembling hands. When was this? 1993. In December of that year, she told me she needed to travel to work on a photography project across the country. She promised to come back in a few months. Michael paused, the memory of that time still raw. I was heartbroken, but I respected her decision. She came back almost a year later, completely changed. She had renamed herself Catherine, left professional photography behind, and together, we built Thompson Enterprises. And you never suspected anything? Michael shook his head. Catherine was private about her past. I respected that just as she respected my own demons. But now, looking at you," his voice broke. "How could I not have seen it? You're identical to her." Olivia pulled out her phone and began scrolling through more old photos. "Grandma always said my mom was a restless soul, always searching for her place in the world. In her final weeks, she told me my mom had made hard choices out of love." "Your grandmother," Michael hesitated. "Is she still alive?" "No," Olivia replied softly. "She passed away 2 years ago. She raised me on her own, always telling me stories about Mom, keeping her memory alive." Michael watched as Olivia continued flipping through the photos, each image revealing more similarities between mother and daughter. The same shy smile, the same dreamy look, even the way they tilted their heads slightly when concentrating on something. "There's something I need to show you," he said finally, reaching for his briefcase. In the last week before she passed, Catherine spent hours locked in her office writing something. "I found this after the funeral." He pulled out a sealed envelope, yellowed with age, with the name Olivia written in Catherine's elegant handwriting. Olivia's eyes fixed on the envelope as if it were a bomb ready to explode. She knew my name? Apparently, she knew a lot more than she ever revealed. Michael extended the envelope to her. I didn't open it. It wasn't my right. With trembling fingers, Olivia took the envelope. "I don't know if I want to read it. I don't know if I can forgive her for—" "You don't have to decide now," Michael gently interrupted. "You don't even have to see me again after today if you don't want to. But I think you deserve to know the truth, whatever it may be." Olivia slipped the envelope into her bag, her movements deliberately slow, as if she were trying to buy time to process everything. Do you think you're my father?" The question hung between them, heavy as lead. Michael looked into her eyes, the eyes of Catherine, and felt a mixture of fear and hope he hadn't experienced in decades. "There's only one way to find out," he replied softly. "But no matter the outcome, Catherine was my wife and you are her daughter. That already makes you part of my family if you want." Silent tears began to stream down Olivia's face. "I spent my entire life thinking I was an orphan, that my mother died loving me. Now I find out she lived another 25 years, built another life, another family, and carried the pain of that decision until her last day," Michael finished softly. "Catherine may have made mistakes, but she wasn't a bad person. There was so much love in her, so much love that sometimes it hurt." Olivia's phone vibrated, reminding her of the errands she should have been running. Michael immediately reached for his wallet. "Let me make up for your lost workday." "No," she pulled back. "I don't want your money. I just need time to process all of this." Michael nodded, fully understanding. He took a business card from his pocket and wrote his personal number on the back. "When you're ready, if you're ready, call me. Day or night." Olivia took the card, her fingers brushing lightly against his. For a moment, they stood there, connected by that simple touch and by decades of secrets finally being uncovered. "Thank you," she whispered, standing up, "for telling me the truth." Michael watched her walk to the door, carrying not only Catherine's envelope but also the weight of a story that was only beginning to be unraveled. When she stopped in the doorway and looked back one last time, he saw in her gaze something he hadn't seen in a long time: hope. 3 days passed without news from Olivia. Michael alternated between staring at his phone and losing himself in old photographs of Catherine, searching for clues that might have given away her secret over the years. How had he missed the small absences, the whispered phone calls, the moments when she seemed miles away even though she was right by his side? On the morning of the 4th day, while reviewing some contracts in his office, Jennifer interrupted him through the intercom. "Mr. Thompson? There's a young woman downstairs. Olivia Parker. She doesn't have an appointment, but send her up. Immediately." The minutes until the elevator arrived seemed to drag on. When the doors finally opened, Olivia emerged holding an old, worn cardboard box. Her eyes were marked by deep dark circles, revealing sleepless nights. "I found this in my grandmother's attic," she said without preamble, placing the box on Michael's desk. "I spent the last few nights reading every letter, every note." Michael watched as she pulled out dozens of yellowed envelopes from the box, all addressed to Elizabeth Parker at different addresses over the years. All returned, marked with unknown recipient. "Catherine tried to find me," Olivia continued, her voice trembling, "for years. But Grandma had moved with me, changed her phone number, cut all possible ties. She thought she was protecting me." Carefully, Michael took one of the letters. The date was 1997, 3 years after Catherine's disappearance. The envelope was sealed, never opened. "There's more," Olivia said, pulling a red-covered journal from the box. This was her journal from the time she was pregnant. And she hesitated, her hands trembling as she held a particularly thick envelope. I read the letter she left for me before she died. Michael felt his heart tighten. And she explained everything. Olivia took a deep breath, tears beginning to form in her eyes. But the truth is even more complicated than we imagined. She opened the journal to a marked page and began reading. Today I confirmed what I had already suspected. I'm pregnant. The baby is Michael's, I have no doubt. But how can I go back and tell him? After what I found out about Thomas, after the threats, Michael felt the blood freeze in his veins. Thomas? Thomas Crawford? Olivia nodded. Who is he? Michael stood up abruptly, walking to the window. Thomas Crawford had been his partner in the early years of Thompson Enterprises. A brilliant businessman but without scruples. He had died in a car accident in 1999, or at least that's what everyone thought. Thomas was my partner, he began slowly. When I met your mother, we were just starting the company. He had questionable methods of doing business. Catherine was always with her camera, documenting everything for our photo archive. She found something, Olivia concluded. She must have. Michael ran a hand through his gray hair. But she never told me anything. Instead, she disappeared. Olivia flipped through a few more pages of the journal. Here, Crawford cornered me today. He said that if I showed the photos to anyone, especially to Michael, he would destroy not only the company, but also make sure Michael was arrested. The evidence he planted is far too convincing. I can't risk it. Not now, not with a baby on the way. Michael sank heavily into his chair. She left to protect me? To protect us, Olivia corrected, pulling another document from the box. Look at this. It was a series of newspaper clippings, all about Thompson Enterprises, carefully organized by date. Along with them, small notes in Catherine's handwriting, documenting every success, every milestone of the company. She never stopped following your life, Olivia said softly. And when Crawford died, she's back, Michael finished. Changed her name, reinvented her story. But she could never tell the truth about you because that would mean explaining why she left in the first place. In the letter, Olivia continued, her voice cracking, she wrote that her biggest regret wasn't leaving, but not finding the courage to come back and get me after Crawford died. She said the fear of losing everything again, losing you, the life she had built, paralyzed her. And then the longer it went on, the harder it became to tell the truth, Michael concluded, feeling his own heart break. But there's more, Olivia said, her voice turning serious. A lot more. The photos she took, the ones Crawford was so afraid of? She didn't destroy them. Michael sat up straighter. What? They're here. Olivia pulled a brown envelope from the box. And after seeing them, I understand why she ran. Mr. Thompson. That Crawford didn't die in that car accident. The office fell into dead silence as Michael opened the envelope with trembling hands. The photographs in his hands told a story of corruption, blackmail, and a complex fraud scheme that stretched to the present day. And in the last photo, dated just 2 weeks ago, an elderly yet unmistakable man sitting in a cafe, Thomas Crawford. He's alive, Michael whispered. And based on the date of this photo, he knows Mom's dead, Olivia finished. And now, more than ever, we need each other. Because if he finds out about me, about these photos, Michael stood, his decision already made. 25 years ago, Catherine had sacrificed everything to protect those she loved. Now it was his turn to do the same. I won't lose you too, he said firmly. Not after finally finding you. The look they exchanged in that moment was one of mutual understanding. The truth about the past had been revealed, but the real challenge was just beginning. And this time they would face it together. Michael's apartment occupied the entire top floor of one of the city's most exclusive buildings. That night, while the storm battered the windows of the private office, father and daughter meticulously examined every document found in Catherine's box. She documented everything meticulously, Olivia murmured, organizing the photographs in chronological order on the mahogany desk. Every suspicious transaction, every secret meeting. Michael watched his daughter work, noticing how she slightly bit her lower lip as she concentrated, exactly like Catherine used to do. The resemblance was almost painful to witness. Crawford built a parallel empire, he said, scanning through some banking documents. Using Thompson Enterprises as a front to launder money for. My God? He stopped, paling as he read the details of a specific transaction. What is it? Human trafficking, he whispered, horrified. Crawford was using our logistics companies to transport people. Olivia placed a hand on her father's shoulder, a gesture of comfort that felt surprisingly natural, despite how little time they had known each other. You didn't know. Mom found out and did what she could to protect everyone, but at what cost? Michael let out a heavy sigh. She sacrificed her own happiness, lost precious years with you, and still found a way to document everything, Olivia finished, picking up another stack of papers. Look at this. Even after coming back and marrying you, she kept secretly monitoring Crawford. Every move, every new shell company. Michael's phone vibrated on the desk. It was Jennifer. Mr. Thompson? I'm sorry to bother you so late, but I thought you should know. A man was here in the office asking about Miss Parker. He said he was a process server. Michael exchanged an alarmed look with Olivia. What did he look like, Jennifer? Old, well-dressed, had a strange accent. Oh, and he had a slight limp in his right leg. Crawford, Michael and Olivia said in unison. After hanging up, Michael began pacing around the office, his mind working quickly. He must have found out about our conversations. Maybe he followed me to the cafe that first day? Or maybe, Olivia interrupted, her voice trembling slightly, he's been watching me this whole time. Waiting for Mom to leave so? She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. The thought hung heavily in the air. Crawford had waited for Catherine to die to make his move. You can't go back to your apartment, Michael decided. It's not safe. But my job, my things. I'll have someone I trust go get everything, he insisted. Please, Olivia. I already lost your mother once because of him. I can't risk losing you too. Something in his voice, perhaps the barely contained fear, perhaps the paternal concern still so new but already so strong, made Olivia relent. Okay, but what do we do now? Michael walked over to a painting on the wall and removed it, revealing a hidden safe. Your mother wasn't the only one who kept secrets all these years. He spun the dial of the safe and opened the heavy door, pulling out a thick folder. I always knew something was off with some of the company transactions, but I could never get concrete proof. So, I started my own investigation. Olivia carefully picked up the folder. Inside, there were dozens of financial reports, suspicious contracts, and, most importantly, a list of names. Are these all Crawford's accomplices? Suspects, Michael corrected. People who always showed up in the same questionable transactions. But I could never connect the dots, until now. He picked up Catherine's photos and began matching the names to the faces in the images. Like pieces of a puzzle finally falling into place, Crawford's criminal network started to take shape before them. We need to hand this over to the authorities, Olivia said. It's not that simple, Michael replied, running a hand through his hair in frustration. Crawford has people planted everywhere. That's how he forged the evidence against me 25 years ago, the same evidence that made your mother run. A particularly loud thunderclap shook the windows. Olivia stepped closer to the window, looking down at the city below, the lights blurred by the rain. You know what's ironic? I spent years imagining what it would be like to have a father. Dreaming of moments of bonding, of protection. And now here we are, conspiring together in the middle of the night. Michael stepped closer, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. It's not exactly the reunion I would have planned. But it's ours, she replied, turning to face him. And maybe it's fitting. After all, it was Mom's secrets that kept us apart. Now it's those same secrets that bring us together. The moment was interrupted by the sound of the doorbell. Father and daughter exchanged tense glances. Are you expecting someone? Olivia whispered. Aqui esta tragicao do trecho para o inglés americano, mantendo a fidelidade ao original e tenseo emotional. Michael shook his head, already moving toward a drawer where he kept a gun. Go to the guest room. Lock the door. Don't come out until I call you. I'm not leaving you alone. Olivia, please? The doorbell rang again, more insistently this time. Then a familiar voice echoed through the intercom. Michael? It's me, Angela. Angela Crawford. I need to talk to you about my father. Michael and Olivia exchanged surprised glances. Angela was Thomas Crawford's daughter and the former CFO of Thompson Enterprises, until she mysteriously disappeared 3 years ago. She might be lying, Olivia whispered. Or she might be our only chance to turn the tables, Michael replied, his mind already calculating the risks. The decision they made in the next few seconds could change everything. The question was, would they trust yet another ghost from the past? The clock on the wall read 11:47 p.m. when Angela Crawford entered the apartment. She was thinner than Michael remembered, with deep circles under her eyes and a frightened look that didn't match the confident executive he'd known years ago. "Sorry to show up like this," she said, her eyes nervously scanning the room until they landed on Olivia. For a moment Angela seemed to lose her breath. "My God, you look just like her. Did you know my mother?" Olivia asked, surprised. Angela nodded slowly. "Catherine was the only person who knew my secret. The only one who tried to help me escape." Michael gestured to the sofa and the three of them sat down. The rain continued to batter the windows, creating a curtain of sound that isolated the moment from the rest of the world. "3 years ago," Angela began, her hands trembling slightly, "I found some documents in my father's office. Records proving that the accident that killed my mother wasn't an accident." The silence that followed was as heavy as lead. Michael clearly remembered Diana Crawford's death, a seemingly ordinary car accident that had devastated Thomas. "Catherine found me crying in the office that night," Angela continued. "She saw the documents and something changed in her gaze. Like a final piece of a puzzle had clicked into place. That's when she started investigating more deeply," Michael concluded. "Yes. She told me about the past, how she discovered my father's activities in the 90s. How she had to abandon." Angela glanced at Olivia with sorrow. "Everything she loved." Olivia stood up abruptly, walking over to the window. The city below gleamed indifferently, unaware of the drama unfolding so many floors above. "Why are you here now?" she asked without turning. Angela pulled a flash drive from her pocket. "Because Catherine gave this to me before she died. She said it was insurance in case something happened to her. I've spent the last 3 years in hiding, collecting more evidence, building a solid case. And now? Now what?" Michael pressed. "Now my father is preparing for his final move," Angela replied, her voice trembling. "Catherine's death wasn't natural. The world seemed to stop." Olivia spun around abruptly, her face as pale as paper. Michael felt as if all the air had been sucked out of the room. "What are you talking about?" he managed to ask. "The cancer was real," Angela clarified quickly. "But it's progress. My father has connections everywhere, even at the hospital. Small changes in the medication, subtly altered doses." "He killed her," Olivia whispered, her legs buckling. Michael rushed to support her, guiding her back to the couch. "Why?" he demanded, his voice rough with emotion. "Why now, after all this time?" Angela inserted the flash drive into Michael's laptop. "Because Catherine never stopped investigating. She knew my father was planning something big, something that would make all his previous crimes seem insignificant in comparison." The computer screen lit up with dozens of files. Documents, spreadsheets, coded emails, all pointing to a massive operation set to unfold in less than a week. "He's going to use Thompson Enterprises to carry out the largest money laundering scheme in history," Angela explained, scrolling through the files. "Billions in resources from criminal organizations all over the world, funneled through shell companies and seemingly legitimate investments. When it's done, the company will be irreparably compromised. And Michael will be the only one held accountable in the eyes of the law," Olivia added, understanding the plan. "Exactly. My father has forged a trail of evidence over the years, all pointing to Michael as the mastermind. With Catherine dead, no one could prove otherwise." Michael stood up, walking over to his private bar and pouring himself a drink with trembling hands. "He killed his own wife, then Catherine, all for money?" "Power," Angela corrected. "Money is just a means to an end. My father, he sees himself as some kind of misunderstood genius. Someone destined to control not just the criminal underworld, but also the world of legitimate business. Aqui esta a tragiqueo do texto para o inglés americano, preservando o impacto emocional e a tenseo narrativa." "Panic room," he whispered, grabbing Olivia's arm. "Behind the bookshelf?" "No," she replied firmly. "I won't hide while he—" "Please," Michael begged, his voice breaking. "I can't lose you like I lost your mother." Before Olivia could protest again, Angela intervened. "Go with her, Michael. I'll distract him." "Angela?" "It's my father," she said with surprising determination. "My responsibility." A beam of flashlight light sliced through the darkness of the hallway. Michael no longer had time to argue. He guided Olivia to the bookshelf, pressing a hidden mechanism that revealed a steel door. The moment the door silently shut behind them, Thomas Crawford's voice echoed through the penthouse. "What a touching family reunion," the elderly man mocked, his flashlight illuminating Angela. "My own daughter, the traitor, fraternizing with the enemy?" "It's over, Dad," Angela replied, her voice steady despite the obvious fear. Catherine left enough evidence to destroy you? Crawford's laughter was as cold as ice. Catherine? That foolish romantic who thought she could stop me? Look how she ended, alone in a hospital bed, begging for air while cancer consumed her. Well, cancer and a few chemical assistants. Inside the panic room, Olivia stifled a sob. Michael held her tightly, watching the scene through the internal camera system. Why? Angela asked, buying time. Why do all this? Kill Mom, Catherine, destroy so many lives? Why not? Crawford replied, gesturing for his two henchmen to take their positions. People are just pieces on a board, dear. Some need to be sacrificed so the game can continue. Your mother found out too much, just like Catherine. And now? He smiled, a smile that didn't reach his dead eyes. Where is little Emma, Angela? Still safe with your trusted friends? Angela's face went pale. What did you do? Nothing yet. But you know how children tend to have accidents? You monster. Angela lunged at her father, but the henchman held her back. Now, Crawford continued calmly, where is Michael? And the lovely Olivia? I have special plans for them. Michael felt his blood boil. Beside him, Olivia was typing furiously on a laptop connected to the building's security system. What are you doing? He whispered. Mom wasn't the only one who knew how to document things, she replied, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Every word he's saying is being recorded and streamed live to secure servers. And she smiled, a smile so much like Catherine's it hurt. I just sent our location and all the evidence to every trusted contact Angela listed on the flash drive. Outside, Crawford was losing his patience. Search every room, he ordered his henchmen. They have to be here somewhere. It won't matter, Dad, Angela said, a new confidence in her voice. It's over. Emma's safe. I'd never actually leave her with friends. She's been with federal agents since I left your organization. And now you've just confessed your crimes to an audience that's very interested. As if to confirm her words, the sound of sirens began to echo downstairs, rapidly approaching. Crawford's face twisted in rage. You idiot, he snarled, pulling out a gun. You're just like your mother, weak, sentimental. No, a strong voice rang out behind him. She's much stronger than you'll ever be. Michael had silently left the panic room, his own gun aimed at Crawford's head. The henchmen, realizing they were surrounded by the increasingly close sound of sirens, dropped Angela and ran for the emergency exit. It's over, Thomas, Michael said firmly. For Catherine. For Diana. For all the lives you've destroyed. Crawford laughed, a sound devoid of any humanity. You really think you can stop me? I always have a plan B, Michael. Always. In a swift motion, he turned the gun toward the panic room door, where Olivia had just emerged. The shot echoed through the apartment at the same time Angela threw herself in front of Olivia. No? Michael shouted, his own shot hitting Crawford in the chest. The old criminal staggered backward, surprise in his eyes as life left him. His body hit the floor at the exact moment the elevator doors opened, revealing a federal tactical team. Angela. Olivia knelt beside the wounded woman. Why? A promise is a promise, Angela whispered, a trickle of blood escaping from the corner of her mouth. I promised Catherine that I'd protect you. Michael joined them on the floor, pressing on the wound as paramedics were called. Hold on, both of you, he pleaded. We've lost too many to him already. Angela weakly smiled, her eyes starting to lose focus. Emma? She's safe, Olivia reassured, holding her hand. You did it. We all did. When the paramedics finally arrived, the sun was beginning to rise on the horizon, its first rays piercing through the broken windows, as if promising a new beginning. The nightmare that had started 25 years ago was finally coming to an end, leaving behind a trail of pain but also the promise of healing. Michael embraced Olivia as they watched Angela being rushed to the hospital. In the pocket of his shirt, Catherine's final letter felt like it was burning. A reminder that some loves are too strong to be broken, even by time or death. Shall we? He asked softly, looking at his daughter. We have a long history to rebuild. Olivia nodded, silent tears streaming down her face. Together, she replied, squeezing her father's hand. Together, they walked into the light of a new day, carrying with them the legacy of a woman who had sacrificed everything for love, and whose courage had, at last, set them all free. 6 months later, the rehabilitation hospital's garden was especially beautiful that autumn afternoon. Olivia adjusted her camera, capturing the moment when Emma, her golden curls swaying in the wind, carefully pushed Angela's wheelchair along the stone path. Watch the steps, sweetie, Angela gently warned, her voice growing stronger each day. The bullet had missed her heart by mere centimeters, but recovery would be slow. Still, the doctors were optimistic. In a few months she might walk again. "Aunt Olivia?" Emma waved excitedly. "Did you take a good picture?" "All your pictures are good, sweetie," Michael replied, approaching with a tray of coffee and hot chocolate. In recent months he had become not only a father to Olivia but also a father figure to Emma, who had never experienced this kind of unconditional male love in her life. They sat on a nearby bench, basking in the warmth of the late afternoon sun. Angela watched her daughter play with the fallen leaves, a serene smile on her face. "The investigations officially ended today," she remarked, accepting the cup Michael offered her. "All of my father's accomplices have been identified and arrested. Thompson Enterprises is officially clean." "And rebranded," Michael added. "Starting next week, we'll officially be Thompson and Parker Enterprises." Olivia lowered her camera, surprised. "Parker? I thought your mother would like it," he answered softly. "Besides, you're as much an heir as I am. It's only fair that your name, her name, is there too." The tears came easily in the past few months, like a broken dam of emotions long contained. Olivia hugged her father, feeling the love and acceptance she had always dreamed of finding. "Speaking of Catherine," Angela began, pulling an envelope from her purse. "They found this in my father's old office. I think you should have it." It was an old yellowed photograph. In it, a young Catherine held a newborn Olivia, while tears ran down her face. On the back, in the elegant handwriting Michael knew so well, were the words, "My greatest act of love was leaving you to protect you. My greatest dream is that one day you understand and find each other." "She knew," Olivia whispered. "She knew we'd find each other someday." "Your mother was always the smartest of all of us," Michael replied, his voice thick with emotion. "She understood that sometimes love means sacrifice, but it also means trusting that fate will find a way." Emma came running back, her arms full of colorful leaves. "Look, Mommy. Can we make an album like Aunt Olivia taught us?" "Of course we can, my love," Angela smiled, stroking her daughter's hair. "We'll make an album full of happy memories." The week after the official conclusion of the investigations, Michael organized a small private ceremony in the garden of their new home, a spacious property on the outskirts of the city, with a huge garden where Emma could play and Angela would have space for her rehabilitation. The location had been chosen specifically because it reminded Michael of the botanical garden where he and Catherine had met so many years ago. The ceremony was simple but meaningful, the opening of a small art gallery dedicated to Catherine. The white walls were adorned with her photographs, telling a story of love, loss, and redemption through her lens. A special section had been reserved for the photos she had secretly taken over the years, not the ones that incriminated Crawford, but the ones that captured stolen moments from Olivia's life. Graduations, performances, everyday moments that an absent mother had captured from afar, keeping alive her silent connection with her daughter. "She was never really far away," Olivia commented, gently running her fingers over a photo of herself at 16, receiving a photography award at school. "Even when we thought she was." Jennifer, Michael's loyal assistant who had now become almost part of the family, approached with a sealed envelope. "We found this in the old safe in the office. It was instructed to be opened only when the gallery was inaugurated." With trembling hands, Michael opened the envelope. Inside was a letter in Catherine's unmistakable handwriting. "My beloved Michael and my dear Olivia. If you are reading this, it means that the truth has finally come to light and somehow you have found each other. It also means that my final project is complete. This gallery that tells our story through the images I captured throughout a life of divided love. Michael, you have always been my safe harbor even when I had to leave. Your strength gave me the courage to do the impossible, to leave the two people I loved most in order to keep you both safe. Every moment away from you was a small death, but every photograph I took was a silent promise that one day we would be together again. Olivia, my little warrior, you are the best part of me. Watching you grow from afar has been my greatest joy and my deepest sorrow. Every award you won, every smile you gave, every moment of triumph. I was there, capturing it all through my lenses, dreaming of the day I could hold you and tell you how proud I am of you. Love takes many forms, and sometimes the greatest act of love is giving up everything to protect those we love. But true love always finds its way back home. This gallery is my last gift to you. Not just a space of memories but a place of healing, where the past and the present can finally meet in peace. With eternal love, Catherine." The letter passed among the guests, each word a testament to the extraordinary love that had bound that family together, even in the darkest moments. Angela, now able to take a few steps with the help of crutches, approached a particular photograph. One that showed her mother, Diana, smiling at a family picnic years before her death. "I think our mothers would be proud," she said softly, "of how we've turned all this pain into something beautiful." Emma, who had been unusually quiet, tugged at Olivia's dress sleeve. "Aunt, can I show my surprise now?" With an encouraging smile from her mother, Emma ran off to fetch something she had kept hidden. It was a handmade photo album, decorated with preserved autumn leaves. "This is our new story," she explained, opening the album to reveal photos Olivia had taken over the past 6 months. Michael pushing Angela in the park, Emma making a silly face at the camera, all of them together at the first family dinner, simple moments that were now extraordinary precisely because of their ordinariness. "Grandma Catherine helped us find each other," Emma continued with the innocent wisdom of children. "Now we need to continue the story." Michael embraced his adopted granddaughter, marveling at how love could expand to accommodate more and more people. His family had grown in ways he never imagined possible. Olivia captured that moment with her camera, adding another memory to the collection that now told not only a story of loss and secrets, but also of redemption and new beginnings. As the afternoon drew to a close, with the sun setting on the horizon, the guests gathered in the garden for a toast. Michael raised his glass, looking at the people who now formed his closest circle: his daughter, who was the living image of Catherine; Angela, who had risked everything for the truth; Emma, who brought joy and innocence back into their lives; and Jennifer, whose loyalty had helped keep them all safe. "To Catherine," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion, "who taught us that true love is stronger than time, deeper than secrets, and more powerful than any darkness. To family," Olivia added, "in all its diverse and extraordinary forms." When night finally fell, the garden lights automatically came on, creating a magical and welcoming atmosphere. Catherine's gallery softly glowed, her photographs silently telling a story of love that transcended time and death, proving that some bonds are truly eternal. Friends who have accompanied us on this emotional journey, it's time for us to connect even more. Did this story of love, sacrifice, and redemption touch your heart? Share your emotions and thoughts in the comments below. Which moment affected you the most? What memories or reflections did this narrative awaken? Don't keep these emotions to yourself. Hit the like button so more people can discover this touching story, and don't forget to subscribe to the Life Stories channel. With each new subscription, we feel even more motivated to bring stories that make a difference, that move us, and that remind us of the transformative power of love. Activate the notification bell to be the first to know when a new story arrives, because believe me, we have many more touching stories to share with you. See you in the next story, where once again we will explore the depths of the human heart and the infinite power of love. Until then,